So I want to take these next couple Sundays, and I want to turn our minds, our thoughts toward the whole concept of Christmas, what it was all about. And I want to share with you today, with the understanding, the whole thought of God's timing. So the title of my message today is In God's Time, and how God unfolds the whole Christmas season, how that first event came about, and where that takes us, and what is still to unfold before us. Let me just begin today by asking you this question. What do you think about God's timing? I mean, you ever get into a place where you're just flat in a panic saying, God, do you understand how late it really is? Do you know that I've got some things happening here? God, I'm under the gun. Could you come and help a little bit here, God? You know, have you looked at your watch lately? What do you think of God's timing? You know, because, one of the things about God's timing is it just kind of intrigues me in the sense that I think what makes God decide when things should be done? And what makes him get to a place where he says, now is kind of an urgent hour? Does God ever have that feeling that he's running behind? Where he looks at his watch and says, I'm late! Does he ever do anything in a hurry? Does he ever set things on a timer so he doesn't have to be concerned with it? Walk over to his oven and say, I'm going to put this on time bake. Set the coffee pot the night before so that in the morning there's a fresh brew already waiting there, you know? Does God have to do any of those things? Does he set an alarm or an alert system so he doesn't forget something? I was saying earlier today that, I got this thing on my phone, this push notification that whenever I have an appointment, I just put it on my calendar and it allows me to have certain alerts. The next thing you know, I hear my phone dinging, and it's dinging. I'm thinking, what's that all about? And I think, oh yeah, 2 days from now, I got a doctor's appointment, whatever it is. And then I have it set where an hour or so before the appointment as well is dinging, because, believe it or not, I forget some things. Does God ever have to put an alert in or an alarm on so that he doesn't always forget? I mean, how does God calculate time, and how does he manage it? These are questions we'll probably never have answers for this side of heaven. I don't know that we'll ever really fully understand. However, we do know that God does work within certain time frames. One of the things we understand is that God has a time frame within which he works. It's not a thing where God has just kind of wound up the clock and it's ticking down and whatever happens, happens. God has a plan. And there's a timeline within which God works. And we know this because Paul tells us, within this passage, we're going to lift it out of the passage for a moment, he tells us that when the fullness of time had come, or when the time had fully come, God sent forth his Son. Now, what does that mean, when the time had fully come? What does that say, in the fullness of time? Are we talking about when the time of Mary's pregnancy reached its fullness, and God sent us Jesus, or that when the gestation period for carrying a child was finished, then God gave us his Son? Well, I don't think so, although, there possibly is some of that. I think what this whole thing means is that it means that at the precise moment when all was fully ready, at God's predetermined time, and when all was in place, he sent us his Son, Emmanuel, God with us. Amen. So it was God's exact timing that brought Jesus into this world. And it was at his perfect moment, at that time that he had etched out in the beginning of creation, that he sent forth his Son. Now you might say to me, well, Pastor, why is all that important? What really matters about it all? And it's important because it shows us that God has a plan. It shows us that his timing may not always be perfect in our eyes, although it may not always feel perfect. It is perfect, whether we realize it or not. And that you can take comfort in knowing that God has the timing of your life, my life, in his hands, and he's not forgotten us. Amen. In addition to that, we can also know that what God said and fulfilled regarding Jesus' first coming guarantees us that his second coming will take place exactly as God said it would. Amen. So all of this helps us to see that God does nothing by accident, and that everything fits into his well thought out plan.